Hey, how you doing? So in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create this dark and moody wolf-like look. So you can achieve this in quite a few simple steps. So I'm going to start from the beginning and just walk you through this process. So the first thing we want to do is come to our layers panel, and I'm just going to select a curves adjustment, and I'm going to come to the top here. I'm going to bring this right down, and what this is going to do is just darken our image for us. If you then come over to your brush, so just a normal brush, we can make this bigger by pressing the bracket keys, and I've got my flow and opacity down to 80 and 60%, and all we're going to do is just click, and we just want to pick out areas to just highlight some of these highlights here that we've got. So around here, and the eyes as well, and maybe just pick out some of the ear. So we then press Control, Alt, Shift and E. This will give us a final image up here. So you can see here, if we take these away now, this is the adjustments that we've just made. Then what we're going to do is come over, right click, and we're going to convert this to a smart object. So once we've done that, we can then bring this into Adobe Camera Raw. So just come over to Filter and then Camera Raw Filter. So if we come to the Basics panel, we can just make a few more adjustments. So I'm going to bring this exposure down a little bit. I'm going to bring the contrast up. I'm going to bring the highlights up. And these shadows, we can bring them down a little bit. And let's add some more white so it doesn't get too dark. And we can bring the blacks down a little bit. I'm just going to come back to the exposure and just make that a little bit lighter. There we go. So we can make this image slightly softer if we want to. We can bring the texture down and then just bring the clarity back up a little bit. So there we go. And you can also play the dehaze as well. Depending on your image, it will determine what you do with this. I'm going to bring this down a little bit just to bring back some detail in the face there. So we come to the vibrance saturation. We can just drop this vibrance down a little bit and then just increase that saturation up, because it's the eyes that I want to really target. So if we come down to the curves, we can just look at these highlights and just maybe just add a little bit more in there. Same with the lights, just bring out the brightness of these white areas a little bit. And we can just bring the darks up a bit. And same with them shadows as well. There we go. So we're just making sure that the whole image is not so dark that we lose detail. So let's come to the detail. Let's just add a little bit of sharpening. I think about there's good. That looks good. And then let's jump to the color mixture here, and let's start with the hues. So there's not actually a lot of color in this image, but I want to just quickly run through just to make sure that, yeah, there isn't. Okay, that's good. So the main image the main color in this is blue. So I'm going to be focusing on that and these purples here. So there's not a lot I actually need to do in here. I'm going to come to the luminance and just bring them blues down a little bit. Depending on your image will obviously depend on what you do with these colors, but there isn't anything you can do that's right or wrong in here. It's all down to eye, because we're going to be adding color later onto the image anyway. So this step really is just to balance things out a little bit. So what you can do is you can come down to the calibration as well, and this can have a big effect on how your image is going to look finally. So you can see here that I'm adding purples and blues. I'm just doing this by eye just to see what I like. And yet there's not a lot of difference within that. I could maybe push the saturation of the greens up a little bit, and maybe some of the blue there just to get some blue hint. Okay, so once you've done that, just press OK. So we just run through just to give it a bit of a clean up, and you can see there, that's what we've just done. So it has a little bit of an effect on the final image. So the next thing you want to do is come down to the bottom and add a new layer, and then we're going to fill this with 50% grey. So come up to Edit and then Fill, and then where it says Contents here, depending on what yours is, just select 50% grey and then select OK. And then we're going to come to the blend mode and we're going to select overlay. And then what we want to do is come over here and we want to select the dodge tool, And now what I'm going to do is just zoom in and just brighten these eyes up a little bit, and also some of these highlighted areas here. So I'm just going over, and the range at the minute is on highlights, so I'm just concentrating on highlights. What that means is when I go over this image, only the highlighted areas are going to be brightened, none of the shadows, none of the midtones. That's it. So let's come to the shadows and just lighten this down there on the nose and the mouth, and that looks pretty good. And of course you can come up to the opacity here and just change that opacity so you can get it absolutely perfect. Let's just drop it down to about 85. That looks pretty good. Okay, the next thing that we can do is we can add a fog overlay to this. So if you Google fog overlays, then loads will come up. You can literally just download them. So let's just open one up. This is one that I've downloaded off the internet, so just press OK. So this is our overlay here. Now there's a couple of ways you can get this into your picture. The easiest way is just select the move tool, click in the middle, don't let go, come up to your other image, still keeping held down on the mouse into the middle image, let go, and you'll see there's our overlay. It's quite small, but that doesn't matter. So Control Command T, and then I'm just going to spin that to 90 degrees. So around 90 degrees is usually good. There we go. And I'm just going to bring that to the top there, and then I'm just going to pull this over so it fills the whole of the image, and press enter. And then let's select the blend mode. Let's go with screen, and then let's just drop the opacity down. Okay, and once you've done that, you can come back and just make it bigger if you need to, like I did there. You can then drop this opacity down as much as you want or as high as you want, depending on what you want to achieve with your image really. But you might want to come back to this in a little while, because we're going to add a gradient over this, and that will affect how this whole image looks. So let's come down to the bottom and let's add a gradient. And if you select the gradient, the drop down here, you'll see there are loads and loads of different gradients. Again, you can download these, you can make your own. If you come to the blues, then you can probably grab something that's a little bit moody. I'm just going to select a random one, something maybe like that, and then just select OK. And then we've got option here of having and using all these different blend modes. I'm going to use overlay, and then I'm just going to bring the opacity down to around 30-40%. There we go. That looks pretty good. So if we come back to this layer here underneath the fog overlay, we can look at the opacity now, and we can increase and we can decrease that just to give us a bit of a better finish. So that looks pretty good. And coming back to this overlay here, this gradient rather, we can click on the square, click on the color here, and we can darken this to our liking, so we can have something that's maybe a little bit darker. That looks pretty good. It's okay to that. So next thing we want to do then is come down to the bottom here, and let's add a curves adjustment, and we can pretty much do what we want with this. We can pull the highlights out a little bit, and down here we can just get this midtones and blacks looking a little bit cleaner. There we go. We can also come down to here and create a color balance adjustment as well, where we can start targeting these colors a little bit more. So if we come to the blues on the midtones here, you can obviously see that's going to add lots of blue in there. So I just want to pull that back a little bit. There we go. So again, this is done by eye. There's no technical way of doing it really. Let's come to the shadows, and let's just see what happens when we start pushing these shadows up a little bit and pull these down. There we go. Let's go to the highlights. There, that looks pretty good. So okay to that. And then if we come and add a new layer, we can select the brush tool. Come and click on the box here and select like a yellow, and let's come in and just paint over these eyes. There we go. That looks good. And then let's just change the blend mode to color, and then we can just drop that opacity a little bit down there, so it's not as severe. About there looks good. I'm going to come back to this this fog overlay now, and I'm going to come down and select. I want to basically have a bit of a color overlay. You can see color overlay here. So I'm going to just click on that, and you can see here that there's a nice blue that I'm going to select here, and you've got this opacity here. So we can bring this right down, so we just get the exact color and exact match we want. So I think about 18% looks pretty good. Press OK to that, and that's just really helped us with, if we look here, look, there's the color overlay. You can just see that it just really makes it pop a little bit more. You could come back and do some more dodging and burning on these areas as well if you wanted to, and also Control Command T, and that will enable you to move this overlay around, this fog, just so you can get it looking exact in the exact right position. So maybe something like there, so it's not covering the mouth as much. That looks pretty good. Yeah, so that would then complete this whole process. So if we just come to the history here, come down and take a snapshot, you can see there's the before. So we've got a picture there, and it's the light is very dark. Actually, it's quite a dark area, and then just making that a little bit more moody, a little bit more dramatic there is quite a nice finish. You can also, as well, to really finish all of this off, you could come to the hue and saturation and just pull that saturation down a little bit so it's not as blue. So I think somewhere like there, and we could even just bring that lightness down a smidgen just to help everything. So let's just have a quick look at that as well as the final shot. So there you can see that's just enough just to pull that out. If you've not already done so, then head over to my website, togproholidays.com, and you can check out the holidays that we've got coming up. We've got one in June. We're going to Finland to photograph the bears in the wild, and we are also going to Kenya in October, which is going to be amazing. So we've got some other trips planned for next year as well. So head over to togproholidays.com and you can check out everything on there and get in touch with me if you want some more information. Take care, and I'll see you on the next video.